And she was complaining about it. Well, you're gonna get that working for you.
I haven't been down. Be my goodness. Mr. Mayor, I did hit record.
Okay, well, Justin said he's gonna be a little bit late. So we try to make contact with him and see where he's at.
Say, Mrs. Wanling is looking extra happy tonight.
Oh,
Days Kim.
right. Yeah. We're recording. My wife's.
7 years.
Well,
Wife's in the time too.
Separate ways during the day.
We're delayed because Justin said he was gonna be a little bit late. I was under the impression about 10 minutes. I just texted him, asked him for an ETA.
Mr. Mayor, we do have a quorum, and since there's nothing on the agenda, I would recommend potentially just,
About 15 minutes.
I doubt he'd be upset if we went ahead and started and potentially ended without him.
I would agree.
All right.
I'll invite him next time.
Yeah, he's no longer invited. It's a good call.
If we are gonna wait for him to show up,
No, we're not. I'm gonna tell him right now, we're gonna start. And he can just wait till the regular meeting.
okay.
Hey, so let's call the Board of Aldermen work session to order. April 17th at 6:10 PM. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Anybody got anything with the regular meeting agenda?
Post meeting agenda, but what kind of cake is covering all?
It's large.
And we will have cake and refreshments here. Just a minute. Staff communications, city attorney,
I have nothing there.
city engineer, you want to go ahead and?
Sure,
Yeah.
I can fill some time, you know that.
No.
But I would like to update the board on a few things while we have the time. Town Square design is been approved by St. Charles County preliminary. We're addressing some MODOC comments. Those will be turned in before the end of the month. CRB grant applications, that's where I just came from. Presented on behalf of the city. We were first presenters. The 3 projects that, as you know, we presented on the Henning Road TAP grant, the new pedestrian category. So we, as a refresher, we already have the federal money for that project. This is to help us with our share of the match, because on a TAP grant previous to this year, County Road Board would not participate in those types of projects. But they did this year. So Lindsay and I jumped on it, and we have requested 80% of our share. And we're gonna, if we get it, it'll add about another, it'll reduce our share by about 250 to 300,000 on that Henning Road TAP grant, if we receive the road board grant. On Post Road Phase 2, same splits of funding, requesting the maximum that we turned in from the federal share, but then we also requested a lot more from the county, just like Phase 1, to reduce our share. And finally, Bates Road improvements, which is mostly a mill overlay, kind of what we call preservation of Bates Road. And that was the last, those are the three projects that we presented on behalf of the city. And then the other things are in the report, in the written report, but those are the highlights, unless there's some questions. Be happy to entertain any questions. I can keep talking, you guys know that. No, we do have a actual presentation that was prepared, Lindsay and I. If you ever seen it, it was sent to James, and so you could ask him for it, or I've got a hard copy here, but there's also a video presentation of what we presented to the road board. You might find it interesting. I do. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Tom, for your help and your work. I know I've been around for going on 10 years, and we haven't seen this kind of grants since I've been around. Since you've been here, we've really been doing well with receiving. So
So we
thank you.
keep our fingers crossed for this next round. Thank you, Mayor.
Is there money available?
Yeah, so there was for federal money, which we applied for in February. And we applied for those same projects in March with the road board. And the answer is yes. And so they'll award up to the amount that is in the kitty for those designated years. So the answer is yes. And I keep saying it, thank goodness for the St. Charles County Road Board. It's a godsend, because cross that river and there's no help. All that match money, the millions of dollars of these projects that we're assembling, we'd be well, a lot of the cities can't even come up with the match. It's just a fantastic program that St. Charles County has. It sets us apart. But there is a lot of money available, and we're going to keep asking for our share every year.
Is a big part of that development?
Well, Steve Alman was at the meeting, and I did talk to him, but it's the road board that was set up back in the 80s. It really, and then every what is it, 2 or 3 years, I live in St. Charles County as well. We reaffirm it.
That bridge and road tax.
Correct.
Just passed.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that.
So as
money-
long as that keeps getting reaffirmed, St. Charles County will
Right.
be a leader in all things.
Right.
If that ever doesn't get passed, we got
I don't
problems.
see it not getting passed
No.
unless they go for a rate. But
Correct.
as long as no tax increase
Right.
goes through.
And I'm sure that's a safe assumption. It's a wonderful thing that we have out here in the county. But we're asking for our share, but let me tell you, these other cities are really going, I mean, like St. Charles City, obviously there's other cities to present, but tonight St. Charles City presented, Wentzville presented, we presented, and Lake St. Louis presented. Wentzville. And then I guess the next month it'll be St. Peter's, O'Fallon, some of the other. But man, the applications submitted by St. Charles City, holy cow. I mean, holy cow.
The volume or?
Volume and amount, number of projects and amount. So we'll see how it shakes out. But it's a point system and they're not gonna get everything, you know. We're not gonna get everything, you know, as long as we get our share, like we've been doing the last few years. But some big projects out there, Wentzville too. Holy cow, they're, you know, of course, they're in the business, some of them are just building new roads. Lake St. Louis, Wentzville, building big new connector roads. We're just trying to maintain our stuff.
Okay. James is absent tonight. Alderman.
Yeah, I got something I'd like to bring up.
Mhm.
And I'd like to see if we can get something put on the agenda for next month and do a little research on. And this has come up here and this meeting before. And I've been contacted by a number of residents and looked at it, the Stump Road project. Can we come up with a couple traffic calming measures on that road? And to see what the cost is to do that, such as the speed bump type thing, or maybe the dip in the road type thing, you know, that's another idea. I don't know what the cheapest projects are, but
Where are we talking? On what
the
road?
Stump, we doing Stump
Stump
Road.
Road.
And
Uh-huh.
come up with it and discuss it now before we get too far into it. Might need something, if it's feasible to do that. I mean, I think we ought to look into a couple avenues at the most reasonable cost.
I know
but,
we had discussed it with HR Green and several people several times, and they had talked about the extra cost, what it would be.
Right, but I
kinda-
think we're talking about putting in the roundabout or the
No.
turn type
Yeah,
thing
that
with
was
the
gonna be more
curve thing
costly.
and all that.
Yeah.
But I'm just talking about the longer speed bump or the dip in the road, you know, how they put the dip in the road.
Well,
You know,
Yeah, and I can speak, so speed tables are becoming a little more common,
what is-
but, you know, maybe not necessarily on that type of road, but it's, you can get, I mean, I actually have a meeting tomorrow, James and I do with our contractor in the HR Green progress meeting. And, at 9 o'clock, so, I mean, depending on the board's direction, we certainly can have a discussion with HR Green and Hunterstall about putting a price together on I'd say maybe either a speed table or a speed
Yeah, I mean,
humps,
right.
not speed bumps, but so speed humps are kind of in between a speed bump and a table.
Right.
Those,
I think those.
again, but it's a concrete street, so, you know, so there's some other considerations when that's built in concrete. So, I'm not a huge fan of the dips, Mark, because those can create different drainage problems unless they're very strategically placed at sewer inlets. You know, so you gotta make sure.
I know they slow cars down.
Oh, they do, they do. I mean, they can, just, you know. Yeah, I'll do whatever the board directs me to do.
So
And Alderman Johnson, if you would like to define what you would like to see, I'd be happy
Well,
to
and
co-sponsor the RBA.
it's not so much wanting to see, it would be a road calming measure. I'm not an expert in what works, but I'm looking for something that's reasonable cost that would, you know, be able to put in without throwing us through the roof in cost.
I would be happy to co-sponsor that with you, that RBA, and try to put down in the words what you'd like to see, as far as. You know,
But I wanted to know what the pleasure of this board is, if they're interested in that also.
Yes, I've been talking about it for a while.
It's
Been talking
amazing
about
what one election cycle's doing.
talking calm,
Boy,
traffic, calming,
That's good.
traffic.
no, I
calming.
went-
you know, last time this was brought up, Mark, I called the St. Charles County, they set out a radar, okay, that clocked cars both directions for 5 days. There was over 10,000 cars clocked, okay? The average speed of those cars was 32 miles an hour, the average speed, okay? There was one car that was clocked at 62 miles an hour, and they think it might have been an ambulance screaming down the road there from the, okay? So I know if there's a problem, let's do something about it. But if there's not, why would we do something about a problem that doesn't exist? Now, if we want to set out radar again, the clock for, say, a month, we can do that.
We might
Get
get
it.
some altered measurements right now.
That,
Yeah, you're,
Yeah,
you're,
you're not gonna
May
be
not
able
work
to
so
do
well
it.
right now.
What?
Laura's gonna be driving that road. Oh,
I mean,
No, but I'm just asking for what it would cost to actually even do that, because if we do, I mean, find that there's gonna be a problem or whatever, let's already be ahead of the game and looking at this thing instead of after.
okay, and that's fine.
You
We
know what
can,
I'm saying?
we can do that for little to nothing.
That's what I mean.
Awesome.
Now's the time to
I
be
agree.
looking at this thing instead of later down the line.
EMS workers were talking about how they're troubled by the 3-lane road,
And,
so.
and you're exactly right, and I didn't want to go there because I do sit on the board
Yeah.
for the EMS, but there are another ones that are concerned about it. So, you know,
Okay,
So, yeah, let's make it official. We put together an RBA for
that's.
this meeting.
an RBA to do what? I mean, because
Yeah.
tomorrow we're gonna have a meeting with,
To have the discussion and to get the
Do
information.
that without an RBA?
Don't have to, but
I mean,
to make sure it's preserved.
Can we just make a motion at the next meeting?
yeah, we
to
can
do that?
discuss.
Be, to bring it up? That work? Tom?
Well, want to have a motion to put.
And then.
As a discussion item.
And that,
Yeah.
and you guys that pursuant to that, you guys go ahead and do the research in the meeting coming up.
If I can remind, we did have this conversation, it has been on the agenda before, but failed to get that kind of information. I think that if we're going to be successful there, we should probably give enough context for Tom and city staff so they know specifically what we're looking for and they can produce that.
I guess my question to you, Tom, is, are you confused on what I'm looking for?
no, I am not confused and just want to make sure the board has authorized me to start a discussion tomorrow morning with the contractor and the designer to put forth some concept and pricing for you all to review, if I heard it correctly.
What would that look like as far as cost for the city to ask for what you're talking about? Would you believe they would charge for that?
I don't think the contractor will. I'm not sure how much input HR Green will be needed. We could use I mean, there are standards for those speed tables / speed humps of dimensions. Now, it's mostly, I would think, for someone to tell them, contractor, where we want to build. I assume probably minimum of 2 of those. One, you got the bowl, maybe one at third points seems like makes sense to me. And just ask, I can ask tomorrow what they perceive their process would be to get something like that added. And then we would have to probably have them get it approved by MoDOT. I don't think it would be considered a substantial change, so. And then it's not going to be participating anyway because we've already maxed out our money from
Right.
the federal share. So whatever the cost is what it's going to cost the city. So each of those speed humps is $15,000 and times 2, 30. I don't know if HR Green will have anything on top of that or not, but be a lot cheaper if it was being built in asphalt, but it's concrete,
Right.
so it's gonna have to be in concrete. match. But I can start the inquiry if that's so, board so desires.
We'll discuss it tomorrow morning.
Okay,
Start the conversation.
okay. You plan on being there, Mayor?
I do.
Okay,
Got a full day tomorrow.
then I'll let you start the conversation.
Okay? Uh,
That's all I have.
anybody else?
I have a question. I know, and I don't know if it's appropriate to talk about in the work session or during the Board of Aldermen. I know that there's a resolution 380 to the reappointment of Craig Stankovich to P and Z. And the only thing that I could say is I wasn't around when he originally was added to the board, so I know nothing about his credentials or background. I'm just wondering, it's hard to make a decision without having information. And I thought when people applied for positions like that, that they kind of brought forth somewhat of a resume. Hey, I used to work for Boeing. Hey, I did this. Hey, I did that. And that kind of information would be very helpful.
And a lot of times they come to the meeting and they give, they're available for questioning.
Okay.
So I don't know if Greg plans on being here or not, but if he doesn't, or decides to maybe postpone it till he does, if you got questions for him. I know he's been on the board for 2 terms, 1 other term. 1 term,
It's a 4-year term.
4 years.
And I've only been an alderman.
When does his term expire?
When did it?
It's already expired?
Yes, it had its,
So we will have another meeting before their next meeting. Correct.
yes.
Yeah.
On
So-
May the 1st.
So I think we've started moving down that road of reading once in one meeting, second time in the next one. So I might recommend that we try that.
I don't think we read a resolution twice, but it's
Just a resolution.
a
Okay.
resolution. Oh.
You correct.
That's all I had.
Right? You got anything more to say?
I'm sure we can fill time with
Let's,
socializing.
Let's go ahead and make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
And a motion by Mike, second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll adjourn the work session. And we'll convene and 7 o'clock for our regular meeting. So
Okay, sure. Laura.